Good day to everyone joining us, and welcome to today's X Talks webinar. Today's talk is entitled Implementing Digitalized Temperature Monitoring in Clinical Trials at EMD Serono. My name is Sonia Hunt, and it's my pleasure to be your X Talks moderator for today. Today's webinar will run for approximately 60 minutes. This presentation includes a Q&A session with our speakers. This webinar is designed to be interactive, and webinars work best when you're involved. So please feel free to submit questions and comments for our speakers throughout the presentation using the questions chat box, and we'll try to attend to your questions during the Q&A session. Now, this chat box is located in the control panel, and that's found on the right-hand side of your screen. If you require assistance, please contact me at any time by sending me a message using that chat panel. At this time, all participants are in listen-only mode. Please note that this event will be recorded and made available to you for future streaming on xtalks.com. At this point, I'd like to thank Berlinger, who developed the content for this presentation. The Swiss company Berlinger Co. AG develops, produces, and distributes innovative condition monitoring solutions for pharmaceutical and medical technology products with the aim of further increasing efficiency and improving patient safety. Berlinger has been a family business since it was founded in 1865, which allows them to think far beyond quarterly results. Berlinger is fully committed to long-term customer success as they think in generations. Berlinger invests a considerable amount in R&D every year to stay innovative as they did in the last 155 years. They are truly international and proudly partner with leading pharmaceutical companies and major healthcare organizations in over 175 countries. Now it's my pleasure to introduce you to your speakers for today's webinar. And first, I'd like to introduce you to Silke Leiser. She's the Director of Clinical Trial Supply at EMD Serono. Silke works as Director in Clinical Trial Supply supporting the healthcare business of Merck, Germany, which operates in the US and Canada as EMD Serono. She joined Merck CTS in 2005 and gained her experience in the global clinical trial business. Silke is currently focusing on innovations and technologies for clinical trial supplies. This includes the fields of interactive response technologies, material demand planning, optimizing supply activities, as well as patient-centric approaches. And next, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Stefan Dürr. He's the Senior Director, Client Delivery, Head of Drug Supply Center of Excellence with Cenduit. Stefan has been working in the IRT for 15 plus years and has been with Cenduit since its inception in 2007. He worked in various project management roles, including leading the global project management team at Cenduit. Now it's my pleasure to introduce you to Harald van Weeren. He is the Segment Management Clinical Trials and Team Lead Segment Management at Berlinger Co. AG. He has over 15 years of experience in product management and market segment management in various high-tech industries. Harald holds a PhD in physics from the University of Twente, Netherlands. Now it's my pleasure to pass over the mic and the controls over to our first speaker, Silke. So Silke, when you're ready, you may begin.
Thank you, Sonia. So it's really my pleasure to be the first speaker here to talk about the implementation of the Digitalized project for our clinical trials at EMD Serono. I will give it a start and introduce the current condition we are having at EMD Serono and for sure the target condition we are facing. And then I will hand over to Stefan, who introduced the technical solution part to you. And then we have Harald, who provides you with an insight into the project management to make the things happen. And I will finish with a summary of the first results. So I'm showing you here the current condition we are having at EMD Serono. I mean, for sure, we have a well-established process for the temperature measurement and also assessment in case of any deviation. But there is always room for improvements. And these improvements, they are the drivers for implementing a new process. At the moment, our current process, we call it, is fragmented and does not consider cumulative tracking. What does it mean fragmented? So we have a look here in all individual sections. That means into the shipments itself, into the storage at the depots and the sites. So this is for the moment a single process and not put together. This is what we would like to change. Then the current process is simply paper-based and manual and shows therefore the related weaknesses. You can imagine it's prone to human errors, it's time consuming to send out the templates, to collect back the feedback. So we might face delay in decision making. This could affect patient treatment or end in wastage of drug. And there's always the danger of potential incompliance. Furthermore, there are currently no online reports available to get an insight into the temperature of our IMP product, and also not for the assessments that we might have to do in kind of deviation. So it's again time consuming, and we are missing a transparency and the information. And finally, currently we are in consideration for the implementation of cumulative tracking, which is for the time being not the case, but might be the future. So based on that, the drivers are the implementation of an automated temperature assessment and data management system. We want to have all in end-to-end, starting from the shipment, ending until the product is provided to the patient. For sure, we also want to implement the new corresponding process to the new technologies. This means also a full system integration. So that is then about the temperature data loggers with the systems. We have in our case Berlinger and the IIT systems, but also the systems of the CDMO to connect the shipments, the IMP, with the right data logger. And finally, we would like to have an online temperature report available, best case cumulative, for both storage at depots and clinical sites and shipments. So finally, the business impact is we expect increased compliance, quality, and for sure shorter lead times. Then the end-to-end temperature monitoring process should be easy, or we think it's easy in the end, and reliable. And we need an easy and reliable access to the data. Having it easy, fast, and reliable, we would like to be the Merck as the sponsor of the choice, to improve here the Merck's perspective, to be the sponsor of the choice of our customer, of our patients. And for sure, contribution toward digitalization is the part of the overall EMD Serono strategy. And I think, Sonja, it's the time for the first poll question.
Yes, it is, Silke, and I will now launch our first poll question. Audience members, you should see it take over your screen right now. This is done in real time, so your participation is strongly encouraged and very much appreciated. Once I close the polls, I'll be able to share the results with everyone. So the question that we have for you today is, are you using a digital temperature monitoring system? So we have a couple of options below that you can choose from. First option is yes for shipments, or yes for tracking storage areas at investigational sites. The other option is yes for both shipments and at sites. And then the last option is no, we only use manual monitoring. So please go ahead and cast your votes, and then I will close the polls and share the results with everyone. Okay, that looks like it's the majority of our audience members have cast their votes, but we still have a few of you out there that have not. I'll give you a few more seconds if you don't mind just going ahead and pick one of the below, and then I will close the polls and share the results with everyone. Okay, that looks like it's everyone now. A couple more people. Okay, perfect. Thank you everyone for participating in that poll question. I'm now going to close the polls and share the results. Okay, so let's take a look at the results of the poll question, which was, are you using a digital temperature monitoring system? And the results are here. We have 0% saying yes for shipments, 0% saying yes for tracking storage areas at investigational sites. We have 25% saying yes for both shipments and at sites, and 75% saying no, we only use manual monitoring. So thank you everyone for participating in poll question number 1. Now over to Silke. Silke, what do you think about the results of that poll question?
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I honestly did not expect that, 25%, I think you said, crossed on yes for both shipments and sites. This is great. Yeah, this is exactly what we would like to have in the end. And the majority entered obviously being in the same process as we are currently in a manual process. So thank you for providing these answers. And
Okay.
with that, we could hand over to Stefan.
Okay, I hope everybody can hear me now and see my screen. So I'm going to talk about the technical solution. So when we started with that process, discussing with EMD Serono about, project, we're looking at, okay, now how do we kind of come up with a technical solution for this? So obviously, what is needed to ensure that we have the full temperature control before a drug gets dispensed to a patient. So we need to, look at temperature data from depot storage, depot to depot shipments, depot to site shipments, and site storage. Looking at all those different aspects, obviously there's a lot of different people involved. So the sponsor, obviously, the CDMO, so the distribution provider, warehousing, the CRO, and then obviously IRT and the temperature management system. So a lot of different stakeholders that you need to bring together and not just look at the technology, but also look at the process changes that are needed. Harald will go into a bit more details around how we approach that. I will now go into the technical solution. So you see here, basically, the Cenduit RT system is the front-end system in our solution. And we do integrate with the Berlinger SmartView solution through an API. So through a direct database connection, we do interchange information both ways. And so now we look at, how that whole process starts. So whenever, obviously in the RT, a shipment order is generated, so RT decides that a shipment is needed, from a depot to a depot or depot to a site, we will send the shipment order to the warehouse, and then the warehouse will start packaging that order. They will put a temperature monitor into that shipment that you see here, a small picture of that temperature monitor, and obviously send that shipment to the site. Once it's arrived at the site now will basically, you can see the USB connection there on that temperature monitor, can connect that, can log into the RT, connect the USB to their computer, upload the data file into the RT, and confirm the receipt of that shipment. When that is done, the RT interacts with the Berlinger SmartView system to exchange the temperature monitor data, the kit associations to the shipment, and the Berlinger SmartView system will, then assign that temperature profile from that logger to all the kits in the shipment, and will do a check on whether there was an excursion during that shipment, and if there was an excursion, whether any of those kits in the shipment now have exceeded their stability budget. So now let's say that was not the case for that shipment. We had a small excursion, but it was all within the stability budget of the drugs that were shipped. So we now can report back to the site that everything was fine with that shipment. Even though we had a small excursion, that would have usually resulted in a paper process to get this, investigated and then approved. Now the site starts obviously storing that medication, for example, in the fridge, and you see, that we have a storage device there associated with the fridge that now is linked to those kits in the fridge, and data gets monitored with those new temperature monitors, and the site either uploads that data on a regular basis, or if there is an alarm, directly through the RT, or the monitor sends the data directly to the Berlinger Smart View system, and we get the data from there. So now let's say we have another temperature excursion at the site. The fridge was left open for some time, and the temperature kind of increased above the limit. So now again, all of the kits that are in that fridge will be obviously assigned to that temperature graph with that excursion now at the site. And now the Berlinger Smart View system again calculates the stability, the excursions, the cumulative excursions of all those kits. And for most kits, that excursion now is fine because they didn't have an excursion in the shipment before. But the shipment that we just looked at previously that had a small excursion, some of those kits in that shipment now, with that new excursion at site, now have an excursion above the stability budget and now need to be put into quarantine. That's happening now automatically in the system as soon as we receive the data from those loggers. And that now starts a process where we now basically inform the site to put those kits into quarantine. The kits are put into quarantine directly in the system, and we inform the sponsor to basically saying that we had a stability breach now for certain kits, and they can then go into the Smart View system, look at all the temperature graphs, see, is there anything that, is there any additional budget, stability budget that can be used to approve those kits for use, or, are these kits now not available, not good for use anymore? We can then confirm that decision in the Cenduit RT system directly. So what are the benefits of that solution? So as you can see on the right, on that computer screen there, the beauty is that you have the full data available for all your drug kits at the site. So you can look at the temperature graph that shows the temperature profile of the kit during shipment, during storage, and you can have the full data available to prove that the kits have maintained the temperature that they require to be stored at before they were given out to the patients. That increases obviously patient safety. We know that kits that have exceeded the stability budget will automatically put into quarantine status and are not available for dispensing. As we discussed just in the example before, the temperature excursions that do not result in a stability budget breach, they get automatically approved by the system. So that increases the speed of the review because the system is doing that has all the stability budget stored. So kits get released immediately. And due to that, sites obviously have that drug available then immediately for use. So it's not that once a shipment, for example, arrives, that they need to wait several days before the decision is taken whether the kits can be used or not. And in that time, they might have a patient coming that would need some of those kits in that shipment and cannot be treated appropriately. So with that, I will hand it off for the next poll question.
Well, thank you very much, Stefan. I'm going to launch our second poll question, and our audience members should see it appear on their screen right now, and there it is. Okay, and just like before, I'll give you 45 seconds to complete this poll question. And the question is, what would you think are the benefits for sites' digitalized temperature monitoring? So please choose 4 from the below. You have your options there: no manual readout and assessment form to fill out. Option 2, using a single system. 3, short lead times. 4, improve patient safety. So please go ahead and cast your votes now, please. Okay, that looks like We've got some of our audience members casting the votes. If I can get the majority of you now to cast your votes here, then I can close the polls and share the results. Oh, great, perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. I'll give you a few more seconds, and then I will close the polls and share the results. Okay, perfect. Thank you, everyone. I'm now going to close the polls and share the results. Okay, so the question was, what would you think are the benefits for sites of digitalized temperature monitoring? And the results are here. We have 11% saying no manual readout and assessment form to fill out. 44% are saying using a single system. 0% saying short lead times. And then again, another 44% saying improve patient safety. So thank you, everyone, for participating in poll question number 2. Now back to Stefan. And Stefan, before you begin, what do you think about the results of that poll question?
Yeah, no, fairly clear that we have two main answers here for that poll, and I think that matches fairly well with what we would have expected. Obviously, patient safety is at the heart of this solution to ensure that we can ensure temperature is managed in a way that prevents kids with a out of temperature spec profile to be given out to patients. The other thing about the single system, obviously, I think that's interesting as well. It kind of goes now very nicely to the slide here, where we look at how do we meet those target conditions from EMD Serono with our solution. So the fact that it is a one system, the Cenduit RT system, that is the front end system of this, that manages that whole aspect, and all the, with an integration to Berlinger. So that, makes that system really, makes the solution really, really powerful, because it's not more effort for the site to interact with multiple systems accordingly. Then, obviously the process updates, require now new process flows for device assignment, uploads, and new functionality are needed in the RT as well. And, obviously, processes need to be adjusted, at the sites, at the sponsor as well, in terms of how to manage that. As you saw, it's a fully integrated solution. So not only do we integrate between RT and Berlinger SmartView, but we also integrate the information about what temperature loggers are used in what shipments with the different CDMOs that are being used. And last but not least, the reporting. You saw the reporting on the previous screen in terms of showing those temperature graphs. So all of that reporting is easily available in SmartView, and we have in RT as well then some over, the summary of reports. How many excursions have we had? How many kids have gone into quarantine due to that? So all of that is very easily available throughout the study, and obviously also beyond the end of the study. So with that, I thank you for your attention to my part, and I gladly hand over to Harald.
Hello everyone, I hope you can see my screen. So what you've heard so far from Silke is basically the business driver as to why we want to implement digitalized temperature monitoring at EMD Serono. Stefan brought you along in what the technical solution entails, and what I will do now is I will guide you through how we did go about it in terms of project managing the implementation. As Stefan already mentioned, we're not only dealing with EMD Serono. There is also other parties involved, like the CRO, CDMOs that are involved as well, and also within the sponsor, within EMD Serono, and also within the CRO as well as CDMOs. There are also different departments that have something to say about how to implement and aligning processes, and that's very key there. So if you take a step back and look into let's say, a timeline and the various actions that we took in order to have everything implemented and make everything work, on a fairly high level, you look into a picture like this. So, as Stefan already mentioned, we started off discussing with EMD Serono together with Cenduit and Berlinger, and figuring out how this could work, but also figuring out who are all the stakeholders that need to be involved in setting this up. So we had basically all the functional representatives on the table and clearly explaining then, okay, what is the ultimate goal? What are the business drivers? What are the overarching requirements from the sponsor, from EMD Serono? And all the underlying derived requirements from the CDMO and the CRO were collected basically. Also, what was very important was aligning processes. And Stefan already hinted towards that. And there are already existing processes within the CDMO, within the CRO, as well as the sponsor, and they need to be adjusted for this digitalized temperature monitoring to work, basically. And all these processes being aligned also imposes certain requirements. So a lot of collecting requirements, aligning processes that defined basically the integration work that that Stefan explained already. And also, we're also talking about things like SOPs, work instruction that had to be adapted. So a lot of integration work that has been conducted in this project. What else we did is, apart from the usual user acceptance test that's being done in most of the studies involving IRTs, etc., we also did something like a usability trial. So we had aligned those processes, we collected all those requirements, we did the integration work between the software systems, but then we did also usability trial to basically test the whole process and test the technical integration. And this was actually not done during an actual study, during an actual clinical trial. This was done in sort of what I almost would call fake shipments, but also working with loggers in mimicked sites in order to test the whole process. And that's also where you learn a whole bunch. So when you work on a piece of paper together with a big team, the proof of the pudding in the end of the day is in the eating. And the first step in the eating, so to say, is in that usability trial. And that's also a very big step into in implementing this process. The next step is the trial with the actual studies. And we have 2 in view, and they will commence pretty soon. And we have 2 pilots in view where we will actually use the digitalized temperature monitoring solution as we just described in 2 studies. So going into a little bit more detail on collecting requirements, and obviously there are several sources of requirements, and we have the different parties. We have the CDMO, we have the CRO, we have the sponsor, all have certain requirements on this digitalized temperature monitoring. Everybody are users of this digitalized temperature monitoring. So they all come with various requirements. A complete collection of those requirements is key to the success of such a project. What I found in this particular project also very key is the co-sponsorship between clinical operations and the clinical trial supply within EMD Serono, really working hand in hand, coming up with requirements so that the Cenduit team and the Berlinger team could dive into and making this digitalized temperature monitoring solution to work. But also process alignment, and the very fact that you need to align processes and adapt processes also impose certain new requirements. That's something that you have to take into account as well. And taking everybody, all the different stakeholders from the various departments, from the different parties, taking that up is also very key, and they also impose certain requirements that you need to take up. And as Stefan just mentioned, it was not only an integration work between the Cenduit IRT and Berlinger SmartView, it was also an integration with the CDMO systems, and where the shipments are associated with certain loggers, and that information has to come from somewhere, and that came from the CDMO system that was passed on to the Cenduit IRT, and really also working together with Berlinger SmartView to have the complete cumulative view, so to say. So talking a little bit about processes, but also talking a little bit about technology. I'm coming to my question number 3, the poll question number 3 here, and I would like to hand over to Sonia on this one.
Okay, thank you very much, Harold. And we're going to launch our last poll question for our audience members to engage in. And just like before, it's done in real time. So please go ahead and cast your vote on our last poll question. And the question that we have for you is, what is your preferred data logger readout technology? So we have a couple of choices for you to select from below. One is manual readout. The other option is via USB plug-in. Number 3 is via Bluetooth, or the final option via GSM. So please go ahead and cast your votes, everyone, and then I will close the polls and share the results. Okay, that looks like this majority of our audience members. Thank you very much for that, everyone. I'm just going to leave a few more seconds for the few of you who have not done the casting of your vote, if you can do so now. Okay, that looks like it's everyone. Okay, thank you, everyone, for participating in our last poll question. So let's take a look at the results. Okay, so the question was, what is your preferred data logger readout technology? And the results are here. We have 0% for manual readout, 25% are saying via USB plug-in, then we have 50% saying via Bluetooth, and then another 25% saying via GSM. So thank you everyone for participating in our last poll question. Now I'm going to take it over, send it back to Harold. But before Harold begins again, Harold, what do you think about the results of our final poll question?
Very interesting. On the other hand, also not too surprising. In terms of that this is what we see as well as Berlinger. So obviously, the world is more and more going into wireless technologies like Bluetooth, cellular, and so this 50-25% for those two is something that I absolutely recognize. Also, the 20% USB and relying also on more established technologies. Really hardwired is something that I recognize as well as sort of a backup solution, existing technology, proven technology, so to say. So interesting results. So how does that then relate to things like processes? Well, for me, what I see in practice is that some people, when it comes to temperature monitoring, rely more on indeed the proven technologies like USB. Others prefer the wireless technologies. But what is important there is that the different technologies also impose different type of processes. Yeah, so USB requires still some manual handling. Obviously, you have to transfer the data. Wireless technology requires less manual intervention, so to say. Yeah. So these impose different type of processes to be implemented. So that's an interesting result. Thank you. So then talking about the processes, as said, the aligning of these processes has been very important for the digitalized temperature monitoring to work. And what we have done as a complete team from CDMO, CRO, sponsor, so EMD Serono, but also together with Cenduit and us as Berlinger, and we have set together as a team. So what are the existing processes? Where do we want to go to? And how do all these processes need to be interlinked with each other? Yeah. And we have put that all together in one big workflow, and having this on a piece of paper and discussing about mutual expectations between CDMO, CRO, as well as the sponsor, has been very key for the success of this project. And with that, I would like to hand back over to Silke for looking into the first results and the outlook.
Thank you, Harald. If you could move them to the Outlook slide, that would be perfect. Yeah, as you learned from Harald and also from Stefan, there are a lot of things to be considered and set up. And I'm here to summarize, maybe to cluster them, but we say, okay, we would split it into the operational part, but there's also a relevant strategic part to be considered in such a setting. And with regard to the operational part, I would say we had here some milestones which really, made it happen, and which was quite important to get everybody on board for that. And this was the requirement setting. So the specifications of each functions must be considered and have been noted down to be fulfilled. This was one of the major milestones we had. Also the selection of the materials, maybe just to talk about the data loggers. I mean, you have plenty of options to choose the data logger. So we had here a hard discussion how they should look like, what kind of technology, all these things. This was also a crucial part here. But also, as mentioned by Harald, for example, the usability trial, this was also very important, especially for the team members who set the requirement specification up front to see, the systems, they meet my expectations. It's not only to see that the system are working, that's for sure quite important in a usability trial, but it was also for us, being the tester of the system, quite important to see that the system is agitating and shows the performance as expected. With regard to the strategic part, I mean, you learned we had a lot of stakeholders on board. So in-house at EMD Serono, several functions are involved, as well as several vendors being involved, the CRO, the CDMO, IIT and Berlinger. And so we had to manage to bring the things together, and it's in the end a real change management what you have to do. You can imagine all different functions, all different people, they have really different ideas and expectations. It's very diverse, and it's a challenge to bring the things together. And it's also important to take everything into consideration, to discuss everything and to find a good solution. A specific part here, going from manually process to a digital process, was then really also maybe that some people was simply afraid of a new technology and the digital technology in comparison to the well-known paper-based things. So this was one of the major hurdles we had to tackle. So the outlook is, after we did all the work, set the requirement specification, defined our materials, performed successfully the usability trial, we will now test it in real trials, in real pilot trials. For sure, we still do here a user acceptance test before we bring it to live. But it's really the step to switch in ongoing trials or maybe in a new trial to the new solution to see if system also works in real environment. And after this test, or let's say hypercare phase in implementing the new process and new trials, we would then roll out the solution into all of our trials. And with that, I would hand over to Sonja for the Q&A session.
Well, thank you very much, Silke and Stefan and Harald, for that very insightful presentation. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Now I would like to invite our audience to continue sending in their questions or comments right now using the questions window for the Q&A portion of the webinar. Now, I've already received some questions already from our audience members while our speakers were presenting, so I'm going to start with those. We're going to put on our webcams for this segment of the webinar. For the Q&A, we'll put on our webcams. Hi, everyone. And we'll invite Silke, Stefan, and Harald to put on their webcams. There they are. Hello, hello, hello. All right, and I'm going to start with our first question. I'll just wait for Silke. Oh, there she is. Okay, perfect. Well, here's our first question. This audience member is asking, was there a key event that drove this project at this time? In other words, why did this become an actionable issue now? Who would like to start with that
me to
Okay.
answer the question.
Okay, thank you.
No, there was no key event, no issue, nothing really happened. It was more the experience we gathered during, let's say, the last 2 years. I mean, we have been investigated a lot by auditors, so site audits has been performed all over the globe, as well as GMP audits. And the questions around the temperature monitoring and assessment, yeah, they all went into the same direction. So why are you not using more modern data loggers? You still read out manually. I mean, everything was okay, but just to receive these kind of questions based on their experience, so all the other are using USB or whatever, this led us then also to the, well, let's say, thinking about, okay, we might have to do something. Yeah, it's going into this direction. And not only that, it's also the cumulative tracking, which obviously becomes more and more relevant in the pharma industry. I mean, for sure, you can always collect all kind of data and during the process chain on the IMP to put it together, but it's really, really time consuming if you don't have a system available for such things. So these have been, at least on our end, the main drivers to change here something.
Would anyone else like to add to that question, to that answer? Stefan and Harald? Okay, we're okay to go to the next one? All right, let's go to the next question. Okay, the next question I have here is this audience member is asking, what was the normal turnaround for the paper system in terms of potential excursion notification to decision on quarantine or destruction versus this almost instant system? Who would like to take that one or start with that one?
I should start, I think. I mean,
okay, Silke, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we did for sure an analysis. We saw a slight difference between shipments and sites. So we had more issues doing storage at site, honestly. We cannot say that, I mean, for sure I could provide you with an average, but it does not make sense because it was really a wide range between within 24 hours, but also up to 45 days for whatever kind of reason. So therefore, an average makes no sense. It was, yeah, really simply due to the fact that it's manually filled out, it was not complete, not signed, you know, all these things, what happened, which lead then to forwards and backwards discussion. And in the end, on several days, losing the time. You might know that when the patient is waiting for the medication, yeah, it's not really helpful if it takes a while to get the assessment form done, if the patient still can use the affected IMP or not. So, and so maybe there is no other IMP available. So this is really a burden in the end.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to go on to our next question. And the question is asked, this audience member is asking, was each stakeholder all in or was there resistance and how did you deal with that? I would like to start with that one. Oh, Harald, you're muted.
Maybe I can start to make a comment there.
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. I think as Silke already mentioned, changing in processes, sometimes certain stakeholders have their natural resistance in any change or in changes. But I think what has been key in this project is taking everybody on board with the ideas that we had, right from the start, and that really helped there.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else like to add to that? Okay, I'll go on to our next question. This audience member is asking, is the temperature monitoring system GXP validated? Who would like to answer that one?
Yeah, I can comment on that as well.
Thank you.
Yes, it is. And I think very key there is that the files or the data that come out of the data loggers, they are digitally signed. Yeah, so the files are being forwarded through to the IRT into Berlinger SmartView. But if, for example, if there is tampering with those files, and they are readable files, but if there is tampering, Berlinger SmartView will not accept the files, basically. So that's a natural block in let's say data protection, and that's one of the key ingredients there.
Okay, thank you very much, Harold. Here's our next question. This audience member is asking, how long did the implementation take? Who would like to start with that one? Silke?
I take that. I'm not happy to provide clear numbers. It's always tricky as with strangers. But I would say, for the core stuff, let's say really the definition of requirement specification and such things, I would say around about 6 to 8 months. Yeah. But this definitely does not include everything, the first approach to get in contact, to see what the systems can do, what the idea is behind. So this is not included in this time frame.
Okay, thank you for that. Here's our next question. This audience member is asking, does the solution also work with IRT?
Well, maybe I can
All right, Stefan.
Well, obviously, yes, it works with IRT. It works best with IRT. Maybe the question was supposed to be if it doesn't, if it works without an IRT system as well. And there, obviously, it's still, obviously, Berlinger SmartView cloud solution. You can, directly upload data there, but you would then not have the data on a kit by kit level. Accordingly, so you would certainly, miss kind of key pieces of the solution. The cumulative tracking, would still be manual. So it's really, IRT kind of brings that data together from linking the kits to the right loggers at the right time, to be able to feed that information into the Berlinger system. And without an IRT, you would have to do all of that manually, which would probably be too much work. So we would certainly recommend to have an IRT system on those studies.
Yeah, and I can second that. I think it's the very key of the integration is the very key to this digitalized temperature monitoring solution, and that the IoT system, Cenduit IoT system, and Berlinger SmartView are really working hand in hand.
Okay, thank you very much for answering that. Here's our next question. This audience member is asking, does the temperature monitoring device communicate during the shipment in real time, or logs environmental conditions and data is downloaded when the shipment reaches the destination? Who would like to take that one or start with that one? Do you want to repeat? Does the temperature monitoring device communicate during the shipment in real time, or it logs environmental conditions and data is downloaded when the shipment reaches the destination?
Okay, yeah, thanks. I will pick that. So for the shipments, basically currently we have what we have currently implemented are basically USB loggers. So basically when the shipment arrives at the destination, then the information is then being uploaded into the IRT, and then onto SmartView. So that's basically in time logging, so to say. and in-time availability of the data. Obviously, we're looking also more and more into, and the trend is more and more into wireless as well as full real-time solutions.
Okay, thank you, Harald. Here's our next question. This audience member is asking, how does this work in IRT when there are different materials with different storage conditions?
Yes, so that's also not a problem. So obviously you would then, mostly you ship, kits with different storage conditions in separate shipments. So you would, on the shipment side, have different shipments there with different loggers. That then, the data that gets captured by these loggers get assigned to those kits. That information is stored in the Berlinger system. So obviously the temperature excursions are then checked against the appropriate storage condition of those kit types. When the kits arrive at the site, obviously you might then have some kits that need to go into the fridge. So you need a temperature logger on the fridge, and then some maybe are stored at room temperature. So you put them in a cupboard, and that cupboard will have to be then controlled by another temperature logger. So that information is then, kind of captured by the site. They can have two fridges, so they then just tell the IRT system which kits went into what fridge, so that we know exactly what data to apply to those kits accordingly. And the Berlinger system then does all of the calculations based on the stability budgets of the different kit types. Can even be that kits with, different kit types have the same storage condition, but have different excursion, ranges, so that all is possible as well. So you can have those kits in the same fridge with the same logger, and then, the cumulative excursions are then obviously applied differently when there is an excursion, because some kits have a higher stability profile than the others. So that works very well.
Okay, thank you very much, Stefan. Here's our next question. This question is, what would a starter kit for a pilot project include from a solution perspective?
Well, I can start with that, and then maybe others can chime in.
Okay.
So obviously, you need to, in the case we have here, you would need to work with Cenduit for the IRT. You would need to work with Berlinger to get the smart view system in place. We would need to use loggers that are compatible with the solution. So the Berlinger loggers that we showed there during shipment, during storage, it can be, that a starter set, for example, could be that we only track the loggers during shipment as well, and not the storage at the site. If it's something that you're not comfortable with yet, to change the way that sites track it. So that is possible as well, but obviously, you only get the full benefit of the solution if you, track storage at the sites, at the depots as well, through the logger, that you have the full data available.
Indeed.
Harald and Silke?
Yeah, and what we also see is that if you really talk about the starter kit, it starts quite often with discussions around shipments. That's what we see, and then the second step is sites. And here in this case, we got into a full-blown solution, both shipment and sites. But indeed, what we see is mostly starting discussions around shipments. That's the case. So I agree with Stefan on this one.
Okay. And Silke, anything from you to add?
I would say most was said. Just again, to find really the right stakeholders is quite of importance, and to involve them from the very beginning on, and simply asking them, what is your goal? What is in for you? What do you expect? Yeah, really addressing these questions also several times, and listen carefully about the answers, and try to solve the concerns, either with providing a good solution, or in tackling somehow else, or in giving the people a deep insight into the technology. So that's quite of importance, to take them all on board and with you the whole time.
Okay, thank you. I think we have time for just one last question I'm going to squeeze in, and here it is. Oh, this is an interesting one. If you do it again, what would you do differently?
Who would like to start?
Yeah, I mean, that's for me a quite similar answer is to the starter kit question. Yeah, stakeholder management is really the key here. You need the input, and you need to have all on board and aligned.
Anything else from Stefan and Harald before we close out?
No, I think Silke summarized it very well. It's if you lose anyone during the whole journey, let's say, you have to you have to take a few steps back actually, and that's obviously not beneficial for the integration and for the project. And again, yeah, I can only repeat it again. Alignment and keeping everybody on board is key for this project.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, thank you very much for those questions. We have reached the end of the Q&A portion of the webinar. If we couldn't attend to your questions, and there's a number of them there, the team at Berlinger will follow up with you after this presentation. Now, if you have any further questions, please direct them to the email addresses that are on your screen, the one for Silke, Stefan, and Harald, so please go ahead and utilize them. Thank you, everyone, for participating in today's webinar. You will be receiving a follow-up email from X-Talks with access to the recorded archive for this event. Now, if we have any, oops, sorry here, just missed something here. Now, a survey window will be popping up on your screen. Your participation is appreciated as it would help us to improve on our further webinars. Now, in a few seconds, I'm going to send you a link in your chat box. You'll be able to view the recording of this event with that link, and also share that link with your colleagues once they register for the recording as well. So I encourage you to do that. And get even more out of today's presentation by downloading the handouts that we have available for you, and there's two there. Cenduit Interactive Response Technology, and the other PDF is Implementing Digitalized Temperature Monitoring for Clinical Trials at EMD Serono. So please go ahead and check that out. Now, please join us in thanking our speakers, Harald, Silke, and Stefan, for that very insightful presentation and for answering all your questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you to the audience.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Now, we hope you found this webinar informative. It has been my pleasure to be your webinar moderator. On behalf of the team here at X-Talks, we thank you for joining us. I'm Sonia Hunt. Until next time, please take care and bye for now. Okay, bye everyone. Thank you. Bye.